Hi class, here I am with Amanda Jo Ratcliff again, and we're coming to you to talk about self-mediation. Amanda, you want to start? You got something to say? You had a good point last time. You were talking about I, thou.
The Martin Buber Dialogic theory, which looks at this way we communicate with other people. The I, thou, meaning we communicate with another person, seeing them as a person,
Right.
Very Christ-like. This is another creation of God that we're communicating with here, versus I, it, where we're communicating in a way that doesn't necessarily address the humanity of the other. And so, that's a really important idea to keep in mind. And of course, it fits biblically. We understand that we're commanded as Christians to love our neighbors, to love our enemies, and so that also encompasses the way we communicate with them.
Okay, so can you give me a practical application? Can you tell me how this would happen every day in everyday life?
Oh, well, sure. If you're coming across someone who maybe is different from you, different culture, different religion, and you're going to disagree with them philosophically, perhaps, let's just take religion for example. Now, how does that affect your communication with them? And so we need to understand that as Christians, we're commanded, of course, to be loving and kind in our communication. We're not supposed to call names or disparage or say hurtful things, because they're looking at not only what we say to them, but how we communicate, how we say it, our tone. We can be very strong in our communication and still be loving and gentle about it. And so it doesn't have to be let's avoid the issue or let's not spread the gospel because we might offend. That's not the point. We still want to spread the gospel. We still want to speak lovingly, but we just need to consider, how will this come across? If it's not going to come across in a way that's going to be received, then what's the point of the communication? Absolutely.
And that takes us right back to Søren Kierkegaard.
Right.
But that might be a little deep for now. Amanda, I was telling you earlier that sometimes, and I'm goofy, but sometimes when I think about self-mediated communication, I have a me and an I. And I is deep inside, but me is the person that you see. You see me.
Right.
You don't see I.
Right.
So sometimes, an example is like if you go to a fair and you meet people or you see people at the fair or who are marketeers who are saying, hey, come buy my wares. Hey, come here. I'm selling watermelon. Come by. Well, then those people are mediated. They're not shy. Their me and their I are really okay with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm not making sense.
No, you are.
Okay.
Because a person like me, I am shy or I'm introverted.
Okay.
And I would have a hard time peddling to somebody else, hey, come buy my stuff.
Right.
Because the me part of me is like, I want to be reserved. The thinking part of me says, wait a minute, I need to sell my goods to make a living.
Right.
So there's some conflict there internally. And so, that's
that's exactly what I'm talking about. And preachers have this too, that they can mediate in a different kind of way from other people because they can talk to vast audiences. But I just have kind of a me. Self-mediation is self-checking.
Okay.
And so I have two separate individuals, both inside of me and I, checking each other. Because I am a person who would stand out and market my wares and say, hey, to a stranger.
Right.
Come buy my stuff. And I was thinking about what are the elements? How do I do that? Because everybody can't do that. And so and then start thinking about how we check ourselves.
Right.
And we need to check ourselves daily.
Sure.
Or often.
Sure, and I think humility plays a big role in that. Because if we're not humble as communicators, we don't stop and check ourselves. We think we're fine.
We think we're right.
Yeah.
Are there instances, or can you think of times when you knew you were right,
Yeah.
but you still had to humble yourself?
Well, usually it was the opposite. I knew I was right, but I was wrong later. But sure, there's a lot of times when dealing with other people that you want to have this influence and you want to be this light.
Right.
They may say something that's factually wrong, and you say, well, I think it's this way, and you just have to be a little humble in how you present it. And but still, it kind of goes back to this whole idea, especially when it comes to communicating the gospel. There's a lot of value in some bold communication if the person is open to hearing it. But if they're not, there might be some different ways to open the door and let them start to consider some things that maybe they hadn't considered before. So a specific example off the top of my head I can't think of, but I know it's happened, and we can all identify with that, where we just kind of have to step back, bite our tongue, and let them figure it out for themselves.
You know what? I had never thought about it, but when that's a cliche in the United States,
right.
And I don't know if it is in Kenya, but we say bite our tongue when we mean that.
Don't say anything.
No, yeah, I'm just not going to say. And that's self-checking. That's
right.
Self-mediated behavior. So class, today I want you to sit back and think of ways that you self-mediate. Things that you do, like biting your tongue, to self-mediate. And we didn't go very deep into it, but just by this conversation that we could do a whole class on self-mediation.
Yeah, lots of scriptures about this.
Absolutely. And to be a good citizen,
yes,
you need to be able to self-mediate. I talked to my daughter about citizenship, and for example, we pull up at the where we get our gas, and somebody has taken their ashtray and dumped all of the cigarette butts on the ground.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, we got to get that up. And she goes, oh, I'm not getting that up.
Yeah. Not my job.
It's not my job.
Right. Yeah.
But I think some kind of self-mediation goes on even there, that I have to be responsible for the environment around me.
Sure.
And I have to mediate and pick that trash up, even though or sometimes we come out of our house and somebody must have been having a party walking down the street last night, because there's beer bottles.
Sure. And they're not from you.
And they're not from me. And so I guess what I'm trying to get into is that there are communication concepts and theories, and I'm really trying to get it over to our class to start thinking on like a subatomic level. You think about these big things, but let's think about the small things too, because those are the things that's the stuff that life is made of.
Sure. And these small things aren't rocket science, they're not difficult concepts, because we do these small things every day, and we're just really putting an academic label on them.
Right.
And once we speak of them, people automatically recognize, I know what you're talking about. And a lot of your self-mediation depends on the role you're playing and the context of the situation, and it's
like what?
Well, you were talking about the citizenship, and that brought to mind this idea of how do we interact with each other as fellow countrymen.
Right.
And how do we respect the laws of the land? And so just a simple example would be driving down the road. My husband and I went to Texas this weekend for a little trip, and we would pass these huge, big 18-wheeler trucks. And it seems like we're that far away from these trucks on the interstate, driving beside them, and we just have to trust that other people are going to abide by the rules, the standards of driving. And so there's a bit of trust, there's a bit of expectation and standard that's out there when we are communicating within ourselves and realizing that other people are doing the same. And good communication occurs when we have this similar understanding, this similar meaning that happens.
For the same concept.
Right.
Like a rose is a rose.
Sure, yes.
Or,
yeah, we cannot communicate about a rose because we have the same.
Because when you see a rose, when you say rose, you and I have the same idea about what a rose is. The same concept applying to the rules of the road.
Right, right.
That's very interesting. So, I hope you guys got a great feel about what self-mediation is about, and I hope that you will discuss it amongst yourselves and write something to us about it. Okay, until next time, God bless. Bye.
Cut.